Welcome to this brand new episode of our podcast series on Business Wise. We are all in the era of startup, especially in a country like India, which is doing extremely well in terms of building the requisite ecosystem for startups. The situation in India is quite conducive, and hence today we are going to explore a topic which resonates with many startup founders who are required to build a solid sales operation from ground up. And to guide us through this session, we have a seasoned expert, Jayant Kelkar. Jayant is the founder of Sales Fundas, and he is also an expert in providing founder-led sales consulting to startup founders, and also serves as a virtual chief sales officer, which in turn help them transform existing sales operations for SME. Welcome to this brand new episode. Welcome, Jayant.
Thank you so much for having me, Viman.
Right, you are welcome. I know Jayant for nearly 2 years now. Besides our companionship in Toastmasters, Jayant is someone who always brings a fresh and unique perspective on the topic of sales, for which he is highly passionate. And he has spent all his professional life doing nothing but sales. And of course, he knows the nitty-gritty from the close quarters. He's someone who has great exposure on various domains like consumer product, insurance, and telecom industries. Jayant founded Sales Fundas, which is his enterprise, and he guides all the founders on this founder-led consulting. So Jayant, my first question is about founder-led consulting. What it is and why do you think it is important for the startups?
Great question. In today's time, when you have a lot of people getting into entrepreneurship and are there to solve the problem that all of us face, coming up with solutions, services, products, and all. Most of them I have found that they come from a technical background. They come from an engineering background, and seldom you'll have anybody coming from a sales and marketing background. Now, all of us know that sales and marketing plays an important role in generating revenue and making the organization run and grow. However, exposure to sales and marketing is very important before you start building up your organization.
True.
Now, one of the things that I've seen is the traditional way is when you want to build a sales operation, hire salespeople, hire a marketing agency, and start your sales and marketing activity. Now, that's fine. However, if you do not have an exposure to sales and marketing, how will you set up the system? How will you demand what is expected out of the team? How will you demand from your marketing agency? What are the kind of objectives that you want to achieve? So before you get into hiring a sales team and hiring a marketing agency or hiring a marketing professional, it is recommended that you get an exposure to the sales operation fundamentals, get a basic idea about it. I'm not expecting you to be an expert, which takes time, but at least you have an overview of what the sales fundamentals are, how a sales operation runs, and then you build your sales operation. Before I conclude this particular subject, one important thing I want to mention is founders are the best and the most suitable salespeople for their startup. And the reason for that is their brainchild. They know their product and services in and out. And when you have that solid conviction about your product and services, you are the best salesperson in the market. So with that, I would like to mention that since a lot of people do not come from sales and marketing background, they need to have a handholding on this field. And that's where my services comes into picture of founder-led sales consulting.
I can already foresee how beneficial this particular discussion would be because I come from technical background and I can relate to everything that you just said. Of course, we are not formally qualified nor even exposed to sales as a function. And the people like me, and especially the people who have great product knowledge, great technical knowledge, always find it difficult to deal with sales. So how do you help them to develop that necessary sales specific skills, Jayant?
Right. So the first part of our assignment, which roughly goes up till say the first 3 months, is primarily closely handholding the founders for helping them understand what are the fundamentals of building a sales operations, right from identifying the ideal customer profile, what kind of a channel we should use, how can we reach out to the customer, where can we find those customers, how many of those customers are actually paying customers. So a lot of detailing that has to happen into these aspects before we actually get into the on-field activity. Based on that, then we look at what kind of a salespeople do we need. So like we have ideal customer profile, we also need to have an ideal candidate profile, in the sense that what kind of a salesperson, what kind of a skills and background and knowledge that person should have, that person fits into my sales team or my products and service or my kind of a customers. Then we get into what kind of a marketing activities we need to build into. So this is the name of the service is Founder-led Sales, which means that founder are leading the sales activity. I am there to handle them, guide them, and give them the inputs. But it's done, executed, implemented by founders. So which is the first-hand experience founders get. Once you have that experience, then in the fourth month, depending upon the duration, it could happen in the third month also or fourth month. Fourth month onwards, we start getting into the recruitment part of the sales team.
Okay.
Now, just recruiting people is not good enough. We also need to have their training calendar, handholding, induction, product training, on-field support. All those aspects are taken care. So roughly there is a map of about, say, 12 months. The first 3 to 4 months goes into handholding the founders. And then we build the sales operations in the balance of the 8 to 9 months time.
Okay, great. So it's basically a stage-wise process. Right. Now, of course, you are talking about developing this new skill, and any skill that we develop, there are all chances of fumbling. Like, for example, I can relate to the days when I was learning to ride a bicycle, and we all fumble, we all topple, we all make mistakes. Which are those common mistakes you see in modern day startup founders?
See, the first challenge for any startup is finding the right product market fit. Now, what is a product market fit? It's a very kind of a commonly used in a term in the startup world today. Product market fit is something that solves the problem of the customer, the targeted audience. Now, it's not an easy task. One of the mistakes that happens is you're going too early in your assumption that my product is suitable for the market and let me build it further. Now, so that's the first part of it. The second part, as I mentioned in my earlier initial response also, that we go traditional way in immediately hiring salespeople and hiring the marketing agency or hiring the marketing people in our own organization. But we don't know what the process they should follow. We don't have a laid down sales processes. We don't have customer engagement processes. We don't have customer acquisition processes. All these things are very important because in today's time, unlike 15-20 years back when it was a salesperson led business, today it is customer led business. Now the difference between that is 15-20 years back when we did not have internet and the customer did not have enough resource to educate themselves or to know about the product before buying, they were 100% relying on the salesperson's story. Whatever the salesperson is telling them is what the information they carry. So based on that information, the customer used to take the decision. But in today's time, customer is equally educated on what kind of solutions are available, what are the alternatives which are available. So they are already ready with that information. Now, if you do not have a proactive approach on that front, there are very high chances that you will not be able to pitch in your product correctly in front of the customer. And you may find your customer is far more educated than you in your solution compared to yourself. So these are some of the, I would call it fatal mistakes that happens. And this happens because you don't have a sales and marketing exposure. That's the only simple thing which and obviously if you are entering into the market or when you start the market, if you do these fatal mistakes, very difficult for any organization or a startup to recover because you're already stretched on your funds, you're already stretched on your time, you're already stretched on your resources. So that's where the pitfalls are.
So let me go back to one step back, Jayant. If you can take us through or walk us through the various stages in detail in founder-led sales consulting activity. I think you mentioned that it's about anywhere between 10 to 12 months, depending on the size of the business. But what exactly happens throughout the process, if you can just throw some light on that?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, the first part is identifying the scope of engagement between me and the founder or the startup. Until unless I am able to gel or I am able to sink in myself with their philosophy in terms of their vision and mission, how can I add value to that? So I spent a lot of time in understanding the basic philosophy of that startup, basic philosophy with which that whole solution or whole product is designed and launched into the product. I do interact with a couple of other people in the startup, get their understanding also. So the initial phase, which say about first 2 to 3 weeks time, I spend a lot of time with different teams, different team members in the startup, so that I become a part of that team. While I have an outsider's perspective, I also need to have an insider view on the concept also. So that's the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. We try and figure out what exactly we are looking at. So what are the top priority items? Now, as a business owner, we want to achieve a lot of things, but it is humanly impossible to control multiple things at one point of time. So you need to prioritize. So we get into that. So first of all, we start with the business model canvas or the lean canvas model. It's a beautiful framework which is quite famous and used by a lot of top Fortune 100 and 500 organizations, and now it's quite popular tool. We sit down on that, do a lot of brainstorming, and there are 9 building blocks of that framework, which we finalize saying that, so me and the founder and the whole team is on the same page. Now, this exercise takes about 2 to 3 weeks time because we really spend a lot of time on this. Moving from there, then we build our rough draft of our sales and marketing strategy. That includes the kind of processes that we are going to follow. That includes the kind of customer acquisition we are going to follow. That includes a calculation about the customer acquisition cost. Well, that's a very important factor when it comes to cash flow and the revenue profit calculation, because the cost of your customer acquisition should be in control of your expenses and your earning. Because if it is too costly for you to acquire your customer, it may hit you on your finances. From there, we move on to, and all this while I am helping the founders with their sales calls, with their customer interactions, with their customer response, market response, a little bit of market research that we do. So we are building the foundation. And towards the end of second month, we sit down and build the final draft of our sales and marketing strategy. Then we move on with recruiting the salespeople, recruiting the marketing people, or engaging with the external marketing agency, digital marketing agency, social media marketing agency, whichever, as per the strategy that we require in terms of in terms of the products and service. And the whole objective is, by the time I exit from my assignment with the startup founder, say towards the end of 12 months, for example, the sales team should be there and running. The operations should be smooth. The processes are laid down, and founder is capable enough now, knowledgeable enough in sales and marketing that he can run the operation without my presence. So in a very small popular term that I can use, it's like build, operate and transfer. So I help founders build it, operate with them for some time, and then hand it over and exit.
Okay, great. So it's not just a robust framework, as I can see, but it's very, very carefully designed. And I'm sure it is applicable to any kind of business. So thank you, Jayant, for sharing those details. One of the things that I have observed with startup founders is that they are always itching to hire people and build their sales team. But I think the key question is, what is really the right point to start thinking and start building their team?
Oh, that's a great question, because like you said it, and we have discussed it in the earlier part also, that there's an eagerness to quickly hire salespeople and let them be on the field so that we can acquire customers. The standard that we use is that founder should have acquired anything between 20 to 25 customers on his own, on her own, going through that sales process, is when the sales process is tested and ready. So something that we call it repeatable sales process. So if you have acquired, say, 20 to 25 customer, by then whatever other experimentation that you have done that. Towards that, you have come to a conclusion that, okay, this is a repeatable and scalable process. This can work on an automate basis. No further human intervention or tweaking is required. So I can say that this is a standard sales process for me now. Is when you are ready to now start hiring people. Because the moment you hire a salesperson, you'll have to tell them what process do they follow. And to have that process in place, you have to develop that process by selling it yourself. So in a simple answer is, the founder should themselves involved into acquiring the first 20-25 customers is when they are ready now, because the process is there, all the experimentation is done. We know all the pros and cons. We know all the market dynamics. How does the customer respond? What kind of a communication should we have? So having learned all that is when we are ready for hiring the salespeople, because these are we are the people who are going to train them. And all these experience that we gather of acquiring 20-25 customers is the experience we use for training our salespeople.
Okay, great. So that's a great input and great guideline as well. But Jayant, I have a supplementary question on this. Is it always by the number of customers? Let's say you gave a ballpark number of 20 to 25 customers, or should it also be linked to certain level of revenues generated through that sales process? Because generating a revenue is also a testament of the processes that you developed so far and executed, of course.
Absolutely. So like I mentioned, the first step that we start is with either the business canvas model or the lean canvas model, in which we clearly identify the customer segment which is suitable for my product and service. Now we further dive deep into it. We pick up those customer segments, we do a further bifurcation, and we clearly identify the paying customer category, which is in line or in sync with my revenue targets or my revenue projections.
Okay.
So I clearly segment them and I focus on approaching only those customers who can pay me the amount that I ask for, which is directly linked to my revenue. So what you said is absolutely right, that I need to track my revenue linkages to the 20-25 customer acquisition. But then before I jump into those 20-25, I clearly identify that these are the segment of people who can afford my services, they can pay my services. And if I acquire, say, 20-25 out of them, my revenue is also taken care, as well as I have the process learned through acquiring.
Great. So after all these sales processes are developed and executed, assuming that the startup is able to acquire at least 15, 20, 18 customers, but one of the things that they usually struggle, and for them probably it's also a difficult conversation, is all about pricing. How do you guide them on pricing conversations?
Okay, pricing negotiation is a very tricky subject as far as the sales is concerned. However, I always respond to this query in this way, that you cannot pick one part of the whole sales process and say that let me attack it. Your pricing negotiation will come as a part of the previous steps that you have taken. I have to make, or we have to make sure that we generate enough value perception in the minds of the customer for them to be convinced that what we are asking for it is reasonable or has a value for money. Now, obviously, pricing policy is one very important factor that every organization goes through, which is a part of marketing and sales also. Because your pricing has to be seen in comparison with the market, similar competitive prices. What are the other competition, other players in the market are offering those services are? How does your product and service weighs with the alternatives that the customer has? How much is the price difference? For that price difference, what is the value add or value minus that the customer is getting? Because customer will go through all these comparisons. even if you don't know. So like I mentioned in the earlier part, that customer is equally educated before you actually meet them face to face otherwise, because they have done their study. They are serious about solving their problem. So they are looking for all the alternatives. So you need to be educated. What are the alternatives available with the customer? What are the plus and minuses for different products and services that you have? And how is your price justifies the value that you are delivering through your product and service? So building up to that price negotiation is a whole process, because you never straightway jump into saying that what's your price and is it high or low. You go through the complete process, and then you come to the price saying that, okay, now let's deal with the pricing part of it. So you build it. So I mean, the fundamentals of sales that I spoke about, the initial 3 months, the need to sell it to 20-25 customer by founders and the leadership team of a startup is for this purpose only, to learn the pricing negotiation and the whole sales process, so that by the time you reach to the pricing discussion, so much value is created in front of the customer that you don't need to negotiate. But yes, this is an idealistic situation. It never happens that you will not have we are in India, we are negotiators. So you need to be proactive in your approach, in pitching in such a way that you don't need to compromise on your value as well as the pricing.
All right. So we begin with a problem statement where founders typically have issues with sales. We talked about this entire process. We also talked about various stages which are involved, and of course a point where they need to start thinking about hiring their team and build their sales team. Once the sales team is in place and after reasonable time, I think the next question they need to worry about is efficiency. And there is nothing that can bring efficiencies up if you don't have the tools. So you need to have the right tools. So what would be your advice, or what are your nuggets on use of certain tools to make the entire sales process very, very efficient?
Absolutely. Great question. And this is another thing. In the beginning, we mentioned about what are some mistakes that startups or founder end up doing. This is one of the mistakes that happens, that prematurely they go for automation of sales process. Looking at maybe YouTube videos or looking here and say from here and there. But I always have this question in mind, that what do you want to automate? You will automate the process. So first you need to let down the process and then you automate it. And that's the thing that we spoke about. The first 3 months, acquiring those 20-25 customers gives us a standard process, repeatable, scalable process. Now, one of the things that now everybody knows is, and there are in-house systems are available, there are subscription systems are available. The first is obviously the CRM that we recommend, so that you can capture the data of your sales activity at one place. The second that we talk about is the automated appointment scheduler, so that you're not spending too much time on that administrative part. I also recommend of automating, because nowadays we are talking about artificial intelligence, which also helps in speeding up the whole sales process, or any process for that matter, and it helps in speeding up the administrative work in different aspects of our life. So we use a lot of AI enabled applications for regarding our email marketing, regarding the calling activity that we do. We analyze the call recording of our salespeople. We analyze the call recording with our customers, so that we know that what kind of a tone they are using, what kind of questions they are asking. Are we responding in a right tone? Are we responding in a proper information? Are we speaking too much? Are we speaking too less? So we analyze all those things. Then documentation, process, let down processes, and these things. So there are different tools which are available. Now again, there are certain startups which are bootstrapped, there are certain startups which are funded. So depending upon the fund availability, we go for gradual automation of these processes. But like you mentioned very rightly, automating all these processes is very important, because then it becomes easily repeatable, and it takes away your time that you need to kind of invest into administrative work, and can help you utilize that time into actual customer acquisition than just doing the administrative work.
So as I can see, no matter what, but you need to have several compartments within the sales also. So there are tools which are in the communication aspect. So you have tools related to communication like emails and I think VoIP is also something that people are using. And then there are certain administrative tools which takes away a lot of burden, off your shoulder to take care of some of the mundane tasks, and it takes care automatically. And then of course there are a lot of tools which are available for giving you a lot of insight in the data as well. So data analytics I'm talking about, but maybe that will be too premature for any organizations, because for the startups it's time for them to actually create a lot of data before they really jump into the data analytics, isn't it?
Correct. So just, you touched upon a very important aspect. The first 3-month phase of my engagement that we spoke about, the idea is basically that we enable founders to acquire those 20-25 customers. I'm taking this 20-25 as a standard example. It may be 5 customers, it may be 25 customers, depending upon the market and size that we are talking about. At the end of acquisition is when the data is getting analyzed. That how many calls were made, how many meetings were done, what are our conversion ratio, what is the revenue generation. So all that data is getting analyzed. But at the beginning, we capture this data in standard Excel sheet and this thing because the data is not too much. We are not spending too much time on that front. As we start building sales team, as we have more hands which are working, then obviously we need to have automated systems so that it becomes easy for us to gather data at one place. And the CRM that I spoke about in the beginning has a dashboard for leaders and the founders, so that that can be customized. That what data do you want to look at the real-time basis? How many calls a salesperson has made? Where do they stand on their sales target? Where do they stand on their revenue target? If somebody is lagging, why are they lagging? If somebody is doing good, why are they doing good? So we get all this analytics data on the CRM front only. And there is a dashboard that we customize, and you said it rightly, that data analysis is very important, because if it's a data-based decision rather than the feeling-based decision, you're more likely to have a success rather than a slow success, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot agree more on this. So Jayant, for the want of time, we have committed our listeners to give a bit-sized information. So we'll stop here. But before we wrap up, I want to understand 2 things. So let me combine my question. One, this founder-led consulting process that you just talked about and the guidance that you provide to founders, is it applicable to all kinds of business? And if you can also tell us what kind of customers you have served or what kind of customers have benefited from this process, number one. And second is your final advice, or one single most advice if you were to give to these founders who are not coming from a sales background, what would that be?
Great. So this is applicable primarily to all the startup founders, irrespective of which industry or which domain they are coming from, because sales and marketing is required in any aspect or any product and service that we are looking at. So that's the first part of it. The second part is do it yourself first. That's the first advice I would give. Do not look at hiring people immediately. Do not look at outsourcing those activities which are important revenue generating activities for you, because you being the face of your product and service, you being the brand of your startup, the customer need to feel you, the customer need to see you. Once they see you, the confidence gets built. Once you build the community, which is the set of customers, like I mentioned, 20, 25 or 100 customers or 5 customers, these customers, based on their experience directly interacting with the founders, become your helping hand in the market. So great. Put in your time into learning the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing. You don't need to be an expert in sales and marketing because that takes time, but you need to have a basic fundamentals understanding of how does a sales and marketing works. Because one very important aspect, you may hire a sales team and get the sales done. No big issue on that. But how will you respond when your salesperson comes back to you with a challenge that they have faced in the market and you don't have an answer because you don't have an exposure to that? And I'm sure no founder or no leader would want to get into that situation.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, do it yourself, learn the hard way, and then build it.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Jayant. Again, for the listeners, although this podcast was in English language, but Jayant is very versed with two other languages, at least that I know of, which is Hindi and Marathi. So language is not really a bar. If you want to get in touch with Jayant Kelkar, he is available on LinkedIn, where he regularly posts his insight, shares his experience, and some very unique perspective through his LinkedIn posts and short videos. You can also go to his LinkedIn page and book an appointment with Jayant, which is very easy, just one click, and you will get an appointment of Mr. Jayant Kelkar. He has a website which is www.salesfundas.com. Jayant, which are the other places where people can find you?
Oh, I'm available on all the media, all the social media platforms, every network. I'm part of a lot of entrepreneurs group also. I'm a part of Thai Pune network also. I'm there on Twitter. I'm there on Thread. I'm there on Facebook. I'm there on Instagram. One same name, Sales Fundas, because we talk about fundamentals of sales and marketing. And I'll share my contact number later on, so people are free to reach out to me anytime that they want. And it's not that with every word or from the first appointment it's a paid service. I do provide free consultation. I do provide contribution from my side also. So book your service. Let's have a exploratory discussion and see if something works out.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful information that you've given, because lot of time people think that, oh, I saw this guy on podcast and he's very popular and probably he's going to cost me a bomb. But thanks. I'm really happy to share that you can also provide completely free of cost exploratory services, and maybe a couple of steps further as well, and which can definitely help specifically the startups a lot. I can definitely vouch that. Once again, Jayant, thank you so much. It was wonderful having you. You carry a lot of experience. You are a great speaker, and the way you tell your narrative, I think I'm sure that the listeners would have definitely benefited out of it. We'll meet once again on another topic, and I'm going to chase you for that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.